Unholy Death Knights have been buried 100 feet into the ground with the nerfs of 11.2. Holy Paladin has been risen from 6 feet under, and a lot of other buffs and nerfs have happened in the last PTR cycle. Hello there, welcome back to Marcelian&Flame, where we are looking at the class changes coming into Season 3 with all of the tier set nerfs, mini-style reworks, community feedback unheard of, changes that are so obtuse my dad thinks I'm actually doing a good career choice. Let's actually take a look at it right now without too much of a hassle. First of all, Death Knight. Deathbringer's Reaper's Mark has been increased in its damage by 30% period for both Blood and Frost. Additionally, for Blood, Exterminate has been updated. First Scythe of Exterminate now has a 100% chance to reap a Bone Storm for 2 seconds. Now that actually sounds kind of cool. While for Frost, Bind in Darkness now increases Howling Blast damage on main target when consuming Rime by 60% up from 30%. With Rider of the Apocalypse, Mossworn Menace now reduces the cooldown of Death and Decay by 5 seconds, was 10 seconds before. And for Frost, Morgraine's Might has been updated. Your damage is increased by 5% and you gain 5% critical strike chance while inside Morgraine's Death and Decay, considering that Death and Decay is kind of dead for Frost. It still is dead. You have 2 charges of a spell you're never going to be pressing, but I'm glad that Morgraine can buff your damage by 5% and crit strike as well. I wouldn't be too surprised if this buff extended to baseline Death and Decay, or the ability is essentially dead for Frost. Sandlane for Blood gives Visceral Strength now an additional effect. When Blood Boil hits 2 or more targets, it generates 1 charge of Bone Shield. Wow, that's actually not bad. That actually shifts the generation of Bone Shields to a non-rune consuming ability. What are the implications of that? That might be one of the biggest changes we've seen this patch notes. Moving on, Frost Death Knight. If you liked the revamped Breath of Sindragosa that gave you options to choose which type of damage profile you want and give you a 45-second damage burst that Red has been enjoying for the past few years, then you're out of luck because it has been changed. Now, Breath of Sindragosa is a flat 1.5 minute cooldown. Call upon Sindragosa's aid in battle for 8 seconds, continuously dealing frost damage every 1 second to enemies in a cone in front of you. Consuming Killing Machine or Rime increases the duration by 1 second. Deals reduced damage to secondary targets. Grants a charge of Empower Rune Weapon at the start and 2 runes at the end. And it has 1.5 minute cooldowns and costs 60 runic power. So for all intents and purposes, now it doesn't drain your runic power anymore, and its uptime can be further extended by consuming Killing Machine procs, which means that you're pretty much set to always play this with Obliteration. I don't see any other way to make full value of this version of Breath of Sindragosa, and it's something that I'm not particularly happy about, but then again, if playing with it changes how I feel, then who knows. But Blizzard has been listening to the plea of the Death Knights not actually having a raid buff and losing the grip style of Abomination Limb, so now your Death Grip has a 15-second cooldown outside of PvP combat. Previously it was 25. I hope you're happy, Death Knights. This 100% solved all of your issues you have ever been asking for. It is exactly the replacement of Abomination Limb. The double glacial advance from consuming 2 stacks of Killing Machine with Kill Streak now properly deals double damage and applies 2 stacks of Razor Ice. An issue causing Frostbane to not activate Rime has been resolved. An issue causing Arctic Assault to not activate sometimes when consuming Killing Machine has been resolved. Consuming 2 stacks of Killing Machine with Killing Streak now correctly grants 2 stacks of Bone Grinder. An issue causing Gathering Storm to not extend the duration of Remorseless Winter when tilted into Frozen Dominion has been resolved. Position of Murderous Efficiency and Howling Blades have been swapped, and Frost Scythe visual has now been updated. Yay! Now we're getting to the spicy bits. Unholy Death Knight. After the extensive negative feedback that Unholy DK has received after its so-called rework, we now have changes that solve absolutely no problems of the ones that have been addressed. But hey, at least it's a different pile of shit. Let's take a look. Desecrate has been updated. Death and Decay deals 100% more damage, has its cooldown reduced by 10 seconds, and is replaced by Desecrate after it is cast. And what Desecrate does, consumes your Death and Decay and crushes your enemies within, dealing 100% of its remaining damage instantly. Applies or bursts 1 to 2 Festering Wounds, depending on whether the target is already affected by Festering Wounds. Grants you the benefits of standing in Death and Decay, which means cleaving your abilities. We also have developer notes. We felt there was too much pressure to cast Desecrate as soon as possible due to it dealing greater damage than Death and Decay would otherwise. We are looking to increase its flexibility while maintaining its use case and effectiveness. And to be fair, you're probably still going to be using it just the same, because the idea of maybe popping a Festering Scythe out and then popping a Death and Decay, instantly detonating the 2 runes on all of the targets in front of you is just way too much instant Fester Might stacks to pass away. So I'm not sure if this necessarily fixes the issue, because dealing damage with Death and Decay has never been a Death Knight thing. The damage has been atrocious. Yay, now it deals double the atrocious damage, which is probably better, but this also comes at a cost, which we will see in a second. Death and Decay damage has also been increased by 100%, which does not affect Defile. Bursting Sword damage has been increased by 15%, and you might be rejoicing at this fact, but wait a minute. Bursting Swords now damages up to 7 nearby targets and nothing else. So, no more infinite AoE scaling. Well, it's not infinite AoE scaling. The Unholy Death Knight's damage was scaling up to 20 targets. No more. Defile now has a 30-second cooldown. Previously was 20 seconds, which means that you can no longer queue and maintain more or less permanent Defile so that you have actual AoE potential, because I don't know why, because this never has been a problem with Unholy Death Knight. If anything, it was kind of the only saving grace of doing AoE, thinking that you can actually have consistent AoE, because outside of Defile, your Scourge Strike doesn't hit more than 1 target. So what's the point? Death Grip now also has a 15-second cooldown outside of PvP combat, similar to Frost Death Knight. Bursting a Festering Wound now refreshes the duration of Festering Scythe Override Aura. Scourge Strike critical strikes now causes the Festering Wound to burst for 20% increased damage. This also affects Bursting Sword damage. This will probably accumulate to make Bursting Swords deal relatively similar damage on low targets, or maybe even more damage to compensate for the fact that it doesn't hit as many targets as before, its AoE being absolutely capped. It does, from the initial maths that have been done by the Accurus Unholy Discord community, probably Taznak as well, do more damage at lower end targets, 8 or lower, but it will drop significantly damage in AoE, and it will just stop doing damage after a point way sooner than with other specs. So we're steadily losing more uncapped AoE to the point that in 5 years we'll be fighting 1 target. I am not jaded whatsoever. Sudden Doom no longer reduces the runic power cost of Epidemic, which was reducing it by 10. With the developer notes, we're noticing that lowering the cost of Epidemic led Unholy Death Knight to generate more resources than we'd intended from bursting Festering Wounds in AoE situations. The problem with this is they're trying to fix a point in Unholy's rotation where, because the runic power of Epidemic was being reduced by 10, you would have to spam more Epidemics to consume your runic power, which sounds great, but you just don't have that many globals, so you would end up over-flooding runic power. This being changed doesn't really change anything, because with the addition of Desecrate, popping all of those Festering Wounds, which you're 100% going to want to do, because that sounds to be like the most amount of damage you can do, will over-flood you with runic power anyway, so you will still ignore runic power for the majority of the time in favor of generating and probably bursting Festering Wounds, making this change solve absolutely no problems, begging the question as to how was this problem considered to be a problem, and how is the solution not actually fixing the problem whatsoever. From the initial standpoint, I could be wrong, but I'm also crying inside from the death of Unholy Death Knight. Grave Mastery now increases the critical strike damage of Gargoyle and Legion of Souls. Plague Mastery now increases the critical strike damage of Festering Wound, and an issue causing transformation to not upgrade the abilities of your pet ghoul, such as Claw, have been resolved. It's great that they're keeping their eyes open on Unholy Decay, but this doesn't feel like it's it, and if anything, one of the only saving graces that Unholy still had in its uncapped AoE is also gone now, to be replaced by just doing more damage on fewer targets. A vision of combat design that almost nobody that has played big AoE ever liked or supported in the future, but the DK is going into a direction you're either in the car or you're just watching from the sidelines. Moving on to the Druids. For the hero talents, Druid of the Claw has Empowered Shapeshifting cause Bear Form to reduce magic damage taken by 6% up from 4%. The 4 set piece bonus handling of Blood Talents and Coil to Spring bonuses has been updated. If those bonuses are active at the time of Ravage that triggers the 4 set bonus, the automatic Ravage will also benefit from those bonuses. Automatic Ravages cast by 4 set bonus will no longer consume stacks of Blood Talents or Coil to Spring. With a dev note, it is intentional that the 4 set automatic Ravages do not benefit from Saber Jaws. We do not want the talent to feel necessary to maximize the value of the set bonus, and the fact that the bonus version of Ravage also benefits from Blood Talents makes it feel like you're kind of snapshotting it in a sense, from what I can read from the tier set, and that's kind of great, not gonna lie. For Feral, the 4 set also fixed an issue with automatic Ravage damage involving Feral Saber's Jaws talent that the dev notes already mentioned. For Guardian, Dreadful Wounds reduction to the damage that affected enemies deal to you is increased to 15%, up from 10%, to overall make Bear more tanky, and Strike for the Heart causes Mangle to heal you for 5% of your maximum health, up from 1%. Moving to Wildstalker, Symbiotic Blooms and Bursting Growth healing increased to 30%, was 50% previously, and for Restoration, the Mana Force 2 set bonus has been updated, with the rate at which Symbiotic Bloom grows is increased by 30%, down from 40%. So overall nerf to Resto Druid, and the 4 set bonus Symbiotic Blooms have a 20% chance to trigger Bursting Growth every 2 seconds at 80% effectiveness, down from 100% effectiveness. Moving on to the Evoker. For Flame Shaper Preservation, the 2 set bonus Inner Flame increases periodic healing by 25% per stack, previously was 40%, and the 4 set bonus Essence Bomb, the healing version, radius has been increased to 20 yards, up from 8 yards. How about that? Will Preservations actually be able to use AoE healing on its party effectively? We'll have to see. Devastation. All damage dealt increased by 3%. And a bunch of nerfs to the Season 2 tier set moving into the next patch. And you'll see this happening for a lot of other classes, so that you feel incentivized of using the new Season 3 tier set and dropping the old Season 2. The 2 set bonus has been updated. Jackpots now cast Shattering Star at 50% effectiveness, down from 100%, and occur 20% less frequently, while the 4 set bonus Shattering Star and Jackpots now increase the damage of your next empowered spell by 18% per stack, down from 25%. Preservation, all of the healing has been reduced by 4%, Dream Breath healing reduced by 20%, Temporal Artificer reduces the cooldown of Rewind by 120 seconds, which was previously 90 seconds, this is a buff, and fixed an issue that prevented Lifebind from transferring Emerald Communion healing when the Evoker has a healing absorb. What a weird bug. Hunter changes. I hope the Dark Rangers are sitting down and prepare a box of tissues. Soul Drinker has been updated. Black Arrow damage bonus reduced to 8%, previously was 15%. Bleak Powder damage bonus reduced to 10%, previously was 20%. Phantom Pain damage share percentage reduced to 15%. Phantom Pain damage share now affects up to 8 targets. And Bleak Powder damage reduced by 25%. For Marksmanship, Black Arrow damage was reduced by 8%, so more nerfs. Pack Leader, Shell Cover has been updated. When dropping below 60% health, summon the aid of a turtle, reducing the damage you take by 15%. Damage reduction increased as health is reduced, up to 35% health reduction at 10% health. Can only occur once every 90 seconds. Better Together has been updated. Damage dealt by your pets is increased by 5 and 15%. Frenzy's attack speed bonus is increased by 4%. Tip of the Spear's damage bonus has been increased by 10%. Ren's Flesh damage has been reduced by 30%, but this is because there was an issue with Ren Flesh not actually being treated as a bleed and having armor actually reduce its damage, which has been internally fixed. So realistically, Ren Flesh is just going to do the same amount of damage, but it will actually work as a proper bleed this time. Howl of the Pack Leader now displays an activation overlay when a beast summon is ready. The Pack Leader Bear now properly benefits from pet avoidance, and we have changes to the 4 set bonus. Now it will only summon a Stampede when summoning a beast during lead from the front. Stampede damage reduced by 50%. Stampede now has a target cap of 8 per charging animal. Stampede damage radius increased. Stampede pathing logic has been updated. Stampede visuals have been updated, and the tooltip has been updated to show more accurate damage values with a developer note that says it can be challenging to maximize the positional requirements of Stampede when you don't know when it's coming. We're reducing its power while making it easier to use, a bit more forgiving, and giving you a clearer window of when it's going to be summoned. That's great, and also, as long as they keep giving us love to Stampede, maybe one day we can actually get this cooldown back and function properly, because who doesn't want Stampede? And an issue has been fixed causing Stampede to despawn after striking 5 targets. An issue for Sentinel has been fixed with the Boon of Elune that was granted by the 4-set bonus could overlap with the Boon of Elune granted from the 2-set bonus. And for Beast Mastery, all damage dealt has been increased by 3%. The Beast chance to trigger reduced to 4% from 7%. The 2-set bonus chance to trigger the bonus reduced and no longer scales with haste. The 4-set bonus updated, Bestial Wrath cooldown reduction reduced to 0.1 seconds was 0.25 seconds, and mutagenic attack damage reduced by 33%, and fixed an issue causing Bloodshed to not summon Dire Beast, and an issue has been fixed with Bloodshed to also benefit twice from Bestial Wrath's damage bonus. Marksmanship has had aspect of the Hydra and Honoran Winds, additional target seek range increased to 12 yards, up from 8 yards. Shrapnel Shot no longer triggers from the Liberation 4-set bonus, and the 4-set bonus has been updated, the Season 2 one, where explosive shot effectiveness reduced to 125% down from 300%. Yeah, you're probably going to replace this tier set. And lastly, for survival, there's an issue that's been fixed where the old version of Wildfire Arsenal could still trigger from quick shots. Moving on to Mage, and what's looking like my main more and more each day, Frostfire Frost Mage, Excess Fire has been updated, now has a 50% chance to grant Brain Freeze, down from 100% because we were just getting so many Brain Freezes before that it created some degenerate playstyles. And an issue has been fixed, causing Ignite from the 2-set bonus to not work on critical strikes. For the Spellslingers, a lot of buffs. Splinter Storm now has a 10% chance to grant Brain Freeze, up from 5%, so did we have too many Brain Freezes or not? Splinter Storm now has an 8% chance to grant Clear Casting, up from 5%. And for Arcane, all Splinter damage was increased by 8%. While for Frost, the new 2-set bonus has been updated and chance to trigger was increased to 30% from the previous 25%. And for the 2-set bonus still, an issue has been fixed where Cold Front was not triggering at the correct rate. Moving on to Sun Fury, Lesser Time Warp and Flame Quill duration was reduced to 10 seconds, with a developer note that says these changes are aimed at focusing the power of the Mana Forge 4-set into a shorter window. So, as such, the 4-set bonus has been updated. Lesser Time Warp now grants 25% haste, up from 15% haste. And Arcane Soul and Hyperthermia extension reduced to 0.5 seconds was 1 second. But the spell damage bonus has been increased to 20%, up from 10%. So overall, the damage might still be the same, but it's more concentrated in a shorter window to kind of make sense with how basically Fire and Arcane kind of play. And an issue has been fixed where Lingering Embers was not gaining the spell damage bonus from the 2-set bonus. Moving on to Arcane, the Season 2 2-set bonus has been updated with the chance to trigger being reduced. Ether Attunement is now tracked on the cooldown manager, and an issue has been fixed where consuming Intuition as soon as it procs would not increase Arcane Barrage damage correctly. Fire Mage, all damage dealt increased by 3%, love to see it. And the Season 2 tier set has been updated. Chance to trigger has been reduced, with Combustion's effectiveness reduced to 100% down from 200%, and the 4-set bonus has been updated where Rolling in Hot damage bonus reduced to 8% down from 15%. And for Frost, Blizzard cooldown and duration increased to 15 seconds, with a dev note saying that we've received feedback that Frost's AoE rotation can feel quite cluttered. We're reducing the frequency with which you need to cast Blizzard to help the rotation breathe in AoE a bit. We'll continue to monitor the repercussions of this change and adjust accordingly. Personally, I found that this would be the only fun thing that Frost Mage was doing by going into big AoEs and having like an influx of cooldown reduction on both Blizzard and Freezing Orb that made this feel super fun. They don't like big AoE gameplay whatsoever, whether it is on Death Knight or Frost. Maybe I'm overreacting a little bit, but usually whenever they're nerfing big AoE gameplay, whether it is in your damage dealing or the interaction of your rotation or the buttons that you press, it always happens like one step at a time. So I would be surprised if they won't double down on this in the future. Moving to Monk, for the Master of Harmony Brewmaster, the damage of Harmonic Surge has been increased by 25%, and for the tier set bonus, Press the Advantage can now consume potential energy, buffing Master of Harmony to be more in line with Shadow Pan, which seems to have kind of worked. We'll see exactly how in line they are. Baseline for the Brewmaster, a lot of the bug fixes that you will probably see in our upcoming Brewmaster rework video that we have prepped that are now just essentially fixed, so keep that in mind. Fixed an issue causing Walk with Yox to grant too much cooldown reduction. Fixed an issue causing Nuzal's Resolve to heal for too little when healing spheres were consumed with Expel Harm. This was something that we mentioned in our rework video. Still an issue with Nuzal's Resolve to not stack correctly when multiple healing spheres were consumed has been fixed. And a bunch of changes to the single button rotation assistant, and Facepalm and Pretense of Instability have switched silent locations. Paladin! Holy specifically, these are the biggest buffs I've seen, so probably spells that don't usually do that much healing, so I'd be surprised if this actually is very meaningful, but it's good to see that Holy Paladin is being addressed. Holy Light healing increased by 30%. Infusion of Light now increases the healing of Flash of Light by 150%, up from 30%. And then Florences of the Sunwell now increases Infusion of Light's effect on Flash of Light by 50%, up from 15%. These feel like quite big multipliers to some of these procs, making the castable heals on Holy Paladin be significantly stronger. I am all for at least this mentality. I'm hoping that the buffs are big enough, because the tooltip of Holy Paladin is one of the most counterintuitive tooltips in the game, since you look at the number of healings that your spell does and you cannot for the life of you imagine how you can keep a 20 million HP player alive when your healing spells do about 700, 800,000 healing. Another week, another set of Shadow Priest nerfs. Void Volley damage has been reduced by 15%. Idol of N'Zoth damage has been reduced by 30%. Fixed an issue causing Shadow Crash to sometimes apply stacks of Horrific Visions when talented for Idol of N'Zoth. So more nerfs. This is a bug, so this makes sense. Fixed an issue causing Dark Ascension to not increase the damage of Void Volley and Idol of N'Zoth. This might actually explain why the nerfs have been made, so maybe it's not that bad. Fixed an issue causing Subservient Shadows to not increase the duration of Death of Shadows. And fixed an issue causing Phantom Menace to give less critical strike chance than intended. Maybe it's not that bad actually. Maybe I'm overreacting, but we'll see. Oh my god, Rogue, guys, Rogue has been fixed. We got developer notes on Rogue. Let's see what we are getting in the 11.2. The single button rotation and assisted highlight now recommend more appropriate weapon poisons based on your talent, and adjustments their recommendation towards wound poison in PvP content. We're fixed. I'm sorry. We're fixed. Moving on, because we cannot stand too long on Rogue. God damn it, there are other classes in the game. Shaman. For Elemental, the single button Rosetta. Fuck, I cannot do it. I can't do it anymore. The single button assistant and assistant highlight recommendations now appropriately weave between Earth Shock or Elemental Blast and Earthquake when talented for Echoes of the Great Sunring. It's good to know that the one button rotation is even more efficient for giving you damage profiles as opposed to you actually being able to play the game. I am molding a little bit. That's perfectly fine. Let's move on to Warlock. For the Diabolist, the Destruction version, the 2-set bonus has been updated, now triggers from Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, and Shadow Burn. While for Soul Harvesters, we also have developer notes, the window for Soul Harvesters tier set bonus is being reduced to limit the chance of disrupting while maximizing its effect. The 2-set bonus now has been updated. Your Demonic Soul now assaults enemies for 9 seconds, down from 12 seconds. And the 2-set bonus also will make it so that the damage dealt by your Demonic Soul is increased by 20%. So I think this is similar to what Mage has received, particularly Fire and Arcane, to ideally, hopefully give you the same amount of overall damage, but just constrain it to a tighter window that probably matches the cooldown cadence of Warlock even more. Affliction. has developer notes. We are increasing the stack cap on Tormented Crescendo to reduce the chance of losing stacks granted via the Mana Forge tier set bonus for Hellcaller. The Tormented Crescendo can now stack up to 3 times, previously was 2. We always love to see these quality of life changes. Demonology is getting big developer notes and changes. Let's actually read the developer notes, and I'm only boring you with this because it's very important to know where their philosophy is going with the spec so that you kind of know what to expect from the spec if you intend to play it, main it, or alter it in any capacity. We are increasing the number of wild imps empowered by Demonic Tyrant back to 10 as our initial swing left Demonic Tyrant feeling too easy to execute. Wow, this was not even the feedback that was given to Demonic Tyrant. Additionally, we are increasing the value of Master Summoner and Umbral Blaze to be more appealing to invest points in. Umbral Blaze, however, is swapping place with Pact of the Imp Mother. This allows for Umbral Blaze to exist as a means to increase single target throughput without standing in the way of Pact of the Imp Mother, a universally useful talent. Lastly, we are reducing the effectiveness of the Liberation of Undermine tier set bonus and baking in some of its power to smoothen the transition between the Season 2 and Season 3 tier sets, which is something that we've been seeing. Personally, my problem with Demonic Turn was that it was feeling completely unimpactful as a demon of itself and just more as a buff. And the feedback that I have from some of the main warlocks that are, playing demonology as a main for years was that Demonic Tyrant just doesn't hit as hard as before. Not the fact that it was easier to empower with 5 imps. The fact that this is their mindset behind the change, which is definitely a good change, is still a little bit concerning because it doesn't feel like it resonates with what the community and the player base actually thinks is the problem with Demonic Tyrant, but they have their own view of it that doesn't seem to align. So let's see what happens next. Master of Summoner has been redesigned. It will increase mastery by 4% and reduce the cast time of your called Dreadstalkers, summon Vile Fiend, and summon Demonic Tyrant by 25%. All damage dealt has been increased by 6%. Immutable Hatred damage increased by 150%. Let's go! Summon Demonic Tyrant now empowers 10 Wild Imps. Umbral Blaze now has a 100% chance to trigger. The 2-set bonus for Liberation of Undermine has been updated to now summon a greater Dreadstalker at 100% effectiveness, down from 265%. And the 4-set bonus has also been updated, now commands your active Dreadstalkers to Dread Bite at 10%, previously 20% effectiveness. This damage is now increased by 5% per soul shard spent on Hand of Gul'dan, previously was 10%. Pact of the Imp Mother has swapped places with Umbral Blaze, just like the dev notes have been saying, and an issue has been fixed where summoning Charhound and Gloomhound did not match the cooldown of Summon Vile Fiend, which is all really great. It's kind of hard to tell if these are essentially buffs or nerfs, because if you are a Season 2 fully decked out Demonology Warlock going into Season 3, your tier set gives you significantly less damage, but your outside tier set basic kit is giving you more damage. So I don't know if this is necessarily a net zero gain, and it depends on how much damage the Season 3 tier set would give you to figure out if overall Demonology has been buffed in relation to the other specs of the game to be a little bit more of a competitive as a spec in Season 3. And for Warrior, that has been reworked, we're getting changes. For Colossus, Demolish's channel will not break once begun unless the target moves over 50 yards away from the Warrior. And the dev notes say Demolish's single target attacks will still only hit the target if it is in melee range, and the final AoE attack will impact no more than 5 yards from the Warrior. This was a problem that I particularly encountered with Demolish, where targets would move out of my range while I cannot move, and my damage would just hit nothing. So the idea is great, but I feel like the 5-yard range penalty maybe makes sense. It will still feel shit if the targets move away. And for the Protection Warrior, with all of the feedback gathered by the community and our upcoming video, Spellbreaker description updated for clarity. You have a 4% chance to disrupt magic damage dealt to you, reducing the damage it deals by 100%, which I believe pretty much everybody already knew that this was the exact intent of the talent, a talent that's very useless. Nobody's ever going to be using it. It's probably a trap for new players. So the fact that this is the only concentrated changes for the Protection Warrior rework based on the community feedback is very concerning. We're likely looking at a version of the PTR that devs have that's about 1 week behind everybody else's, because I'm pretty sure that they are aware of the feedback that has been given to both Warrior, Unholy, maybe even Brewmaster as well. So the fact that most of the stuff that has been feedback, like they've asked, hasn't been addressed for all intents and purposes is a little bit concerning, but likely next week we'll have more. So yay, this is a very spicy patch. I'm not a very happy World of Warcraft player at the moment. See you next week, but not before you check out our Shadow rework video to kind of give you a sense of what that Void Volley was all about and how is Shadow Priest going to function in the new patch with the changes to the capstones and Shadow Crash specifically.